Okay, I think we're about ready to get this started. At least I hope we are. It's a little background different. Oh, crap. There we go. Now we can see me. Cool. All right. Let's go ahead and get this shindig started. Today's date, November 16, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and host, Will Buchanan, on how the Frack We Got Here. We do try to take the events, news, and all of the above that has happened in this week and try to make sense out of it all. So before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means that things of adult nature may be shown and things of graphic nature may also be displayed as well, so viewer discretion is advised. Let's go ahead and get to the elephant in the room, shall we? Because I still think this shit is funny.
He's been convicted on all counts.
One of those counts is having to do with lying about his contacts with the Trump campaign and Donald Trump. That was the 6th count. And then the 7th count, which he was convicted on, was the intimidation of Randy Credico, who was an important witness for the prosecution. He eventually wound up cooperating with members of Congress, and there are all these colorful and really outlandish, crazy texts between Randy Credico and Roger Stone, and Roger trying to say things to get him not to cooperate, then making a reference to The Godfather 2. All that came out in court. What's going on now is that prosecutors actually were asking for the judge to detain Roger Stone. She, we're just being told, has decided that she's going to let him sit out his awaiting sentence, that she's going to allow him to remain free, and that he's going to be sentenced on February.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're trying to figure out who that person is, pretty much all around evil henchman dressing looking person. Oh, shoot, sorry. So pretty much all around evil dressman looking henchman, Roger Stone has just now been found guilty on all charges. Pretty much he is going away for a very long time. Sentencing, which as the video was cutting out, I apologize, has it set to be sometime around next week, but he could be looking at anywhere between 20 to 25 years. Keep in mind, he's not the only one that's been convicted. Michael Cohen, Michael Flynn, Rick Gates, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Roger Stone, who just makes up, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people assimilated with Trump are now all facing, well, 4 are in jail. One's about to, and Roger Stone's about to join them. So you have 5 people now who literally and figuratively associate with Trump, who swear up and down they did nothing wrong, only to turn around, be found guilty of all charges, and eventually be put away. I'm just saying the company you keep says a lot about you. But speaking of Trump, he decided to go, you know what, Trump, I think, follows the Godfather's playbook to a T, because he did something, well, I really shouldn't be surprised that he did it, but he did it anyway, and this is what I'm talking about.
This extraordinary night
in U.S. history. President Trump tonight is accused of witness intimidation and now faces another possible impeachment charge. Never before has a president publicly attacked an impeachment witness at the moment they were testifying, as Mr. Trump did today on Twitter. It came during chilling testimony from Marie Yovanovitch. The highly respected diplomat and anti-corruption crusader told Congress she felt threatened and intimidated by President Trump. Yovanovitch said she was removed from her post in Ukraine after being, quote, kneecapped by a shadowy smear campaign. Democrats claim that takedown cleared the way for the president to attempt to bribe Ukraine's new president into investigating Mr. Trump's rivals. There's a lot to break down tonight with our team here in Washington, and Nancy Cordes leads us off on Capitol Hill. Nancy, this was powerful testimony.
It was, Nora, and Congress was riveted as she essentially accused President Trump of siding with some notoriously corrupt Ukrainians over his own U.S. ambassador and allowing, quote, shady interests to hijack U.S. policy.
It was terrible. It's not the way I wanted my career to end.
Yovanovitch is a 33-year veteran of foreign service.
My first tour was Mogadishu, Somalia, Tashkent, Uzbekistan. I later served in Moscow.
But as she spoke, the president broke with GOP strategy, slamming her unblemished record by tweet.
Would you like to respond to the president's attack that everywhere you went turned bad?
I I don't think I have such powers.
What effect do you think that has on other witnesses' willingness to come forward and expose wrongdoing?
Well, it's very intimidating.
Yovanovitch described how the president's personal attorney worked for months to smear her reputation.
We were blocked by the ambassador, who eventually got fired,
with the help of corrupt Ukrainians.
Was it Mr. Lutsenko, among others, who coordinated with Mr. Giuliani to peddle false accusations against you as well as the Bidens?
Yes, that is my understanding.
The State Department said she did nothing wrong, but the president still called her bad news, according to the summary of a July call with Ukraine's leader.
A person who saw me actually reading the transcript said that the color drained from my face. I think I even had a physical reaction.
What did you think when President Trump told President Zelensky and you read that you were going to go through some things?
It kind of felt like a vague threat, and so I wondered what that meant. It concerned me.
Republicans argued her testimony was irrelevant because Yovanovitch was recalled before Mr. Trump suddenly withheld military aid to Ukraine, the act at the heart of this inquiry.
I'm not exactly sure what the ambassador is doing here today.
But Democrats say her removal allowed someone else to step in.
Hi, I'm Gordon Sondland.
A Trump donor and EU ambassador who urged the Ukrainians to look into the president's campaign rival, Joe Biden.
What if the president could put someone else in place with no diplomatic experience at all? What if he could put in place someone whose portfolio doesn't even include Ukraine? Might that person be willing to work with Rudy Giuliani in pursuit of these investigations?
Yeah, maybe.
That's exactly what happened, wasn't it?
Yes.
She warned Congress that her career was far from the biggest casualty.
When other countries, other actors in other countries see that private interests, foreign interests can come together and get a U.S. ambassador removed, what's going to stop them from doing that in the future in other countries?
After 7 hours, Yovanovitch departed to a sustained standing ovation.
So that's got to tell you a lot, guys. So Maryanovich, who was the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, which, again, this is a country that has come up so many times during the last 2 months. I personally think Ukraine is going to be the thing that does Trump in. And yes, what he did was witness intimidation. You cannot sit there and say otherwise, that what he did was not witness intimidation. You literally called out the person who was testifying against you in Congress, merely put because you put somebody in who donated, who had no experience whatsoever, and basically did what you wanted. Sound familiar? Because let's be honest, he's kind of been doing that his entire first term. And so again, it amazes me so how the GOP just wants to sit there and brush it aside. What also amazes me about the GOP is that during the time that one of the Democrat representatives brought up the intimidation, it was then brought against the Republicans. So do you not think this is a smear campaign? And here's their reaction.
Aftermath of the president going
after Marie Yovanovitch and attacking her via Twitter, there are concerns from Democrats of witness intimidation and warnings, too, that this could be rolled into an article of impeachment. Democratic leaders, including House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, told me earlier today that it could very well be rolled into an article of impeachment. And also more questions today, Wolf, in the aftermath of her testimony about the role of Rudy Giuliani, how he was playing that role in launching this smear campaign that she testified about as he was pushing matters that she believed undercut the national interest. Now, Republicans are having a hard time today defending the role of Giuliani, some saying that the president is well within his rights to name someone for that post, but others making it clear that they would not necessarily say whether it was right for him to smear this ambassador. Why is it appropriate for the president to tap his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, to mount what she testified to was a smear campaign against her? Why is that okay?
The president can have, as I said, the president can have whom he desires doing diplomatic work for the country.
You think it was a smear campaign? She said it was a smear campaign. Under oath, she testified it was a smear campaign of false attacks against her. Do you believe her?
Again,
Congressman, Democrats say that.
Surprise? Literally, this is the same person who just like Lindsey Graham is basically one of Trump's cheerleaders. So when asked a question about it, you just see him just miss me with the bullshit. Miss me with the bullshit. You can see him literally not want to answer questions. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. You want to defend Trump this entire time, but when it comes down to it, do you think there was a smear campaign against Marie Yovanovitch before her testimony? Really? And at the same time, do you think Trump is pretty much messed with the investigation? But someone says against Trump, oh, I got something. It's amazing to me, Republicans out there, that they will literally defend Trump. It's almost as if it's an order for all Republicans. Like, you have to defend Trump no matter what. I don't know why, because it makes no sense to me. And at the same time, when questions are brought up, you guys just simply seem to, for lack of better words, just miss it. I mean, considering the fact he's already had a crappy week, if you think about it, Trump lost every case and appeal for allowing his tax returns to come out. They are going to come out. However, Trump decided to do something more stupid, where he asked the Supreme Court to step in to block his tax returns from being released. Something that has never been heard of, mind you. Never been heard of. You've never heard of a president going to the Supreme Court and saying, help me to prevent my tax returns from not being released. So from a person who swore up and down his campaign promise was he's going to release his tax returns, I'm going to be like, well, your campaign is over and you've been president now for almost 4 years. When are you going to come in on that campaign promise? If someone is hiding shit, they will usually find every reason not to give it to you. And let's be honest, if someone were to look at Trump's books, I think there would be a problem somewhere. But aside from that, this next story, I promise, I just gotta play it. It's just a lot easier for me to play it than explain it.
And on how public schools can teach things
like evolution. The House today passed the Student Religious Liberties Act. Long story short, students cannot be penalized if their work is scientifically wrong, just as long as the reasoning is because of their religious beliefs. Instead, students are graded on substance and relevance. Every Republican in the House supported the bill. It now moves to the Republican-controlled Senate.
Hang on, folks. Yes, I wish I could just make that up about what I just showed you. Yes, a bill in Ohio just gave students the ability to be wrong on scientific information, knowledge, and questions. They can be wrong because of their beliefs. Okay, I'm not saying religion is a bad thing. I'm not. I do believe that there's a separation between church and state. In the same sense, there should be a separation between religion and knowledge, religion and science. Neil deGrasse Tyson said it best. The beautiful thing about science is that it's real whether you believe it or not, because it's backed up by facts. It's backed up by information. It's backed up by trial and error. So science itself is factually correct. However, I never understood the push to push evolution and religion into schools. Now, if you're a Christian school or a religious school, you guys are open to do whatever you want. That's just a given. However, in the public nature of things, which I'm assuming this is a public school, is just that you don't get to teach. You don't get to teach evolution. You get to teach evolution because that's scientific. You don't get to teach creationism. You don't get to teach religion in a public school. You don't. There is a reason for this, and I'll say this very plainly. I believe that once you start doing that, you start dumbing down education. Because you know why? There's going to be a kid who's going to say, oh, the Big Bang Theory didn't happen because God created the earth in 7 days. again, I am not knocking those who believe in it, because if your religion is that you believe that intelligent design created this planet, cool. From a public education standpoint, we have to teach science because science is necessary for learning. If you want to learn religion, go to a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple, or hang out with the people of different faiths and learn from there. There's nothing wrong with that, but just don't teach it in school, because honestly, this is how you dumb down America. Realistically, I can't stress this enough. This is actually how you dumb down America. When you turn around and you intersect in education, which we already know is the toilet because of Betsy Davos, but technically it's been the toilet before her. No one's just ever had the gall to change it. But still, there just comes to a point to where someone's got to sit there and go, how is this allowed? Again, when you dumb down America, you pretty much can control whoever you want, which we shouldn't be surprised about. But in other news, this also happened, unfortunately, during the week, we had another school shooting.
California still trying to digest the chaos after a school shooting claimed the lives of at least 2 students and left 4 others injured, including the gunman, who is in grave condition. Simone Boyce is on the ground in Santa Clarita. And Simone, what's the latest where you are?
Well, Allison, earlier today, we learned the name of the suspect. He has been identified as 16-year-old Nathan Burhow. In fact, today was his birthday, so you can be sure that investigators are going to be looking into that to see if there's any significance or connection there to mark the day of this shooting today. I spoke to some students at Saugus High School who were familiar with Nathan. They say that I spoke to one woman who was on the cross-country team with him, but she said that nothing really out of the ordinary struck her about him, and that's what we hear so often about these suspects. So, of course, we're going to be looking for more information about Nathan and about his motive in the coming days.
Simone, I know you mentioned they don't know much about the motive right now. Do we know anything about the gun used in the attack, or perhaps how a 16-year-old was able to get his hands on it?
That is the big question, right? And that is something that we're going to be looking for answers in that area over the next couple of days and weeks. But we do know that he did have a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol that was in his backpack, and he opened his backpack, took out that pistol when he was in the quad area, and shot 5 other students. We know that 2 of those students have passed away from their injuries, 1 female and 1 male, while the rest of them remain in the hospital and are being treated for their injuries. Allison.
Simone, I know you've been around the area where reunions were happening with parents and students. Could you just describe for us what that has been like? And we're hoping tonight that all those students have been reunited with their families.
Yes, this was a bustling scene earlier today, Allison. There was law enforcement swarming around this area. Central Park here in Santa Clarita was serving as a command post, and this was also serving as the reunification center, bringing those families and those students back together. I mean, everyone that we spoke to was just completely shaken up by this event. I mean, it's something that you never think is going to happen to you, to your school. This is a very tight-knit community just outside of Los Angeles, and everyone that we spoke to just could not process what happened here today. We spoke to some students who were forced to go on lockdown inside their classrooms, and at times they weren't able to use their cell phones, which of course caused further concern for their parents when they didn't hear from their students for 10, 15 minutes. Obviously, those 10, 15 minutes felt like the longest 10 to 15 minutes of their lives.
Oh, Simone Boyce, what a scary day in Santa Clarita today. Thank you.
And that's the truth, unfortunately, is that we've had another school shooting, and the simple fact of the matter is just that it's going to come to, again, that wonderful question about gun control and about registration, things of that nature. Who is willing to do what? And that's the thing about it, is just that there has to be a call for gun control. Maybe it needs to be treated heavily. I mean, you've heard me talk about it on various podcasts, especially on this one, and there are ways to do it. It's just that if those who are willing to go through it, mainly gun nuts, are willing to accept new challenges, then that's where these school shootings are going to be changing. But again, most of these school shootings I've been saying this entire year, have not come from a legal ownership of guns. These guns are accessible through the parents, and that has usually been the case with a lot of these, that for some odd reason, some of these kids are getting access to these handguns, and not surprised that somehow they always seem, it isn't always that one story, they always seem so normal. Yes, they always seem so normal until they do something crazy. That's usually how crazy people work. But again, it is tragic that two students lost their lives, and the gunman that was later reported on decided to kill himself. So, of course, he passed away from a self-inflicted wound also on Friday. So, it's a sad note that eventually that I can understand why some people don't even want to bring their children to school anymore. Some of them actually homeschool them, and I used to sit there and wonder about that. But as I learned more and saw more, I get it. You want to protect your child. I completely get it. At the same time, it seems the only way you can protect them is to basically be in homeschool, just because, unfortunately, our government is not doing the necessary steps to ensure that these shootings just don't happen anymore. But speaking of gun laws, Kamala Harris, we have to talk, because you know, I have all the respect in the world for Kamala Harris. Now, do I think she'll make a good president? I mean, I want to give her a shot. Do not get me wrong. I want to give her a shot, but let me just play the video, because maybe it could be me. I'll let you guys decide.
Democratic voters. I get the Second Amendment. Ron Schuller is an Air Force veteran and retired police officer. We showed Senator Kamala Harris what matters to him.
Would you support moving assault rifles into a Class 3 weapon category, which requires a more enhanced background check and greater hurdles to overcome to own those?
What'd you think of what Ron had to say?
I get it. What he is saying is that, reject the false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. It's a false choice. There are certain types of weapons that should not be on the streets of a civil society.
Harris agrees. She wants universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapons ban. She also supports a mandatory gun buyback.
So, say you got a couple 100,000 off the streets. I mean, isn't that just a drop in the bucket?
Well, what we'll do is have an incentive for people to turn them in and buy them back. But when we're talking about weapons of war, I mean, it literally is this simple. 5 million assault weapons on the streets of America, period.
And if Congress won't act, Harris says, as president, she'll take executive action. Harry Smith, NBC.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tried. It's like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Really correct me if I'm wrong on this. And if I'm wrong on this, please tell me. But, Jesus Christ! Lady, could you have any emotion behind anything you say? Well, yeah. So, I get it. What he pretty much sat there and said, Kamala, is the simple fact of the matter is, he put it in one of two ways. He sat there and said, are you willing to make assault weapons, are you willing to make assault weapons a Category 3? Now, for those that don't know, Category 3 is the federal classification of weapons. Category 3 means that basically you cannot own this without an FFL, which is a federal firearms license, usually for gun brokers and gun sales and gun store owners. So, pretty much by making it a Category 3, a civilian can't own it, pretty much. So, what he's basically saying in this is just that this comes down to, again, assault-style weapons. AR-15s, for example, usually are the main go-tos. And Kamala Harris could have had a moment right there to solidify what she wants to do, But instead, she's echoing the same thing Beto O'Rourke said, except he was more adamant. Hell yes, we're going to take away your guns. And Kamala Harris, who could use all the support in the world right now, is still going to sit there and say, well, we're going to look into that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm sorry, but her words felt very hollow. Her words felt like somebody who, and you would think as a prosecutor, she's a former prosecutor who doesn't like to defend her record, but still she's a former prosecutor that for some odd reason you would think that you would have a stronger standing. I mean, even Beto O'Rourke, even before he ended his campaign, he was very adamant. Now, did he not, after he had his moment of saying, hell yes, we're going to take your guns, did he not sit there and, try to emphasize that or try to build on that? No, he didn't. That's his failure. But you think Kamala Harris would turn around and say, you know what, we are going to do this, that, and the other. Here's my plan. This is how we're going to do it. It is your moment to shine, and you don't. And that's why I think that it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt her going forward in these next debates, because you don't have a stronger standing on gun control. I know I have a stronger standing on gun control because, again, I'm a gun owner. I am. Now, I don't have a stockpile, and I don't have a stockpile of ammunition. But do I believe you have the right to arm yourself? Yes. Do I believe that you should go through training? Yes. Do I think that you should have a universal background check? Yes. Do I think that you should not have certain weapons? Yes. AR-15 is just a style of the M4, and AR-15 is a civilian version. Do I think people should own them? Honestly, no, because it's a civilian. It's a soldier's style weapon assigned for civilians. And I'll say it once, and I'll say it again. You don't really need one. Now, do I think it's cool? Yeah, it's cool to sit there and have certain weapons. I will never knock that. Matter of fact, there's a certain assault style weapon I would love to have. But again, it's not the zombie apocalypse. Russia is not going to be invading me anytime soon. So there's no need for me to have it. I could be perfectly okay with a pistol or a shotgun or a rifle. That's it. Anything more than that would suggest that you feel safer because you think the opposition doesn't have it. And let's be honest, in any situation, you can't predict what's going to happen, no matter how well armed you are. But again, it's not about taking away the guns, it's just making it harder for those who should not have them to prevent them getting them. That's all I'm saying. And I wish Kamala Harris said that too. But moving right along, guys, I do have some happy news, and I'm glad about this because for all those that don't know about Rodney Reed, this was a story that I had done last week about his execution coming up, and thank goodness people had some common sense.
News tonight in Texas, the state's highest
criminal court halted the execution of inmate Rodney Reed. He was scheduled to die in 5 days for a 1996 rape and murder. New evidence has raised questions about the case.
And I'm happy about that. Finally, a lot of people who have seen his story were crying out for saying, hey, we need to have this guy needs to have his day in court, because we believe that the case against him is full of holes. The medical examiner, the prosecutor, the judge had all done the same thing to other black people from that state in Texas. So, and of course, there was just so much smoke around this, it just made no sense to it just honestly made no sense to execute a guy who could possibly be innocent. Could possibly be innocent. So I'm glad to the fact of the matter that yes, there's a stay of execution on this. I hope to God that they actually do give this man another trial, because I personally believe after reading the story and from reading from different viewpoints on it, I think the guy's innocent. But I still think he deserves to stay in court. But I'm glad about that, because I thought for a second we do not need to execute another innocent black man, which it has happened. But moving right along, guys, things I wanted to point out, but I'm going to point this out. I have two stories, but I wanted to get this one out because this one is near and dear to me because I've had experience about this working for this company. So let me go ahead and play this video first before I sit there and give my point of view.
We're responding to safety concerns surrounding its massive fleet of contractor delivery drivers. There's an ongoing investigation by ProPublica and BuzzFeed News that found those drivers have been involved in more than 60 crashes causing injuries or death since June 2015. Amazon estimates it will have about 50,000 delivery vehicles on the road during the holidays. Mola Lenghi looked at how the contractor vehicles are overseen. Mola, what'd you learn?
Well, good morning, Tony. That joint investigation found that drivers reported feeling tremendous pressure to meet deadlines and that Amazon often avoids liability for accidents. Now, one family we spoke to who lost their daughter in a crash with a delivery driver said no life is worth the package.
The back seat was sort of pushed up into the front seat and her car seat was tilted, and I couldn't get her out that way.
Chad and Ellen Kennedy's 10-month-old daughter, Gabrielle, was killed in January when a delivery driver hit Ellen's car.
Then my eyes went back to the rearview mirror, and that was when I just saw the headlights.
According to the ProPublica BuzzFeed News investigation from September, the driver was hauling packages for an Amazon subcontractor. Those contractors are often liable if there's an accident, not Amazon.
Really serious things that go wrong with these deliveries, it's never Amazon's problem. Amazon has actually sued to enforce the terms of these agreements.
ProPublica senior reporter Patricia Callahan says despite avoiding liability, Amazon has a tight grip on day-to-day operations. The company can even tell drivers to turn left or right on a particular route.
Amazon knows where they are on the road. It's telling them the order in which they need to deliver each package. There's a dispatcher in an Amazon warehouse that can check on their progress and call them and say, where are you? Why isn't it there?
Through work orders, Callahan found that Amazon requires 999 out of 1,000 deliveries to arrive on time. Amazon refuted that claim and said while they have expectations of their drivers, there are no quotas.
The drivers overwhelmingly talked about the pressure that's on them. Drivers talked about urinating in bottles because they don't have time to stop and use a bathroom.
Callahan says the driver who hit Ellen Kennedy said he was feeling pressured that day because he was running behind. But the contractor who employed him refuted that. In an exclusive interview with CBS News, Dave Clark, Senior Vice President of Worldwide Operations at Amazon, said safety comes first.
We're focused on background and driving check to make sure that the people we put in the vehicle come from a place of good driving record, a good safety record, and then we train them before they ever hit the road.
Clark highlighted the technology they use to monitor drivers' actions as an added safety net. But sometimes, Clark said, accidents happen.
When you drive 800 million miles, there will be accidents, unfortunately. Our focus is about how do you reduce those? How do we get our routing to ensure that we're putting people into conditions to where they're not having to back out of neighborhoods, they're not having to make as many left-hand turns, they're really not having to rush through the course of the day.
As for the Kennedys, the father told us they settled in a suit with the contractor, but they insist no dollar amount could quell their grief.
There's no price on my daughter's life, but if I can save another family from this tragedy, and that's the reason why I want to talk to people.
Now, Amazon says that joint investigation did not accurately represent the company's commitment to safety. In a response to CBS News, Amazon extended condolences to the Kennedys and said if a driver is struggling to complete their shipments on a particular route, guys, it will deploy resources to help them on the course of that route.
Well, the Kennedys are right. No package, no deliveries worth anybody's life. And if it's true that Amazon says they put safety first, maybe they need to make sure the drivers understand that, too.
Yes, exactly.
The driver was clearly saying...
Yeah.
Okay, let me stop that right there. Because I first want to get this out. That's bullshit. I've been saying that since I've been watching that video, and I'll tell you why. Because I used to deliver for Amazon. Actually, in that very same position there that they talked about. So I just want to clear up some things. I love the fact that they try to cover the story, and it needs to be covered because anybody who's worked for Amazon, delivered for Amazon, especially delivered for Amazon as a delivery driver, will understand exactly what I'm about to say. Amazon does pressure its drivers to deliver. Now, keep in mind, I'll give you a day in the life of an Amazon delivery driver because, like I said, I did it as a secondary job, and trust me when I sit there and say this, if let me point this out. First and foremost, you basically drive to an area that's already overcrowded, basically for parking and whatnot. You have to get there at least 20 minutes before your actual shift time starts, just to find parking, and then getting into the warehouse, finding a route which you hope your manager, otherwise known as your delivery service partner, has actually got a route for you. Because if you don't have a route, they are not inclined very quickly to make sure you have a route before your assigned start time. Beyond that, you have that 10 minute. They also have to have a required meeting before you leave, which I thought was interesting because they're so adamant about getting you on the road and delivering, but they tell the managers of these teams that you've got to have a stand-up meeting, and it's got to be 9 minutes. It can't be more than 10 minutes. It has to be 9 minutes or less. So already you're rushing to get to work, to park, then to get to the stand-up meeting. Oh, and let me not forget that you also have to make sure that you get your truck. Which means that 9 times out of 10, either they're going to assign you a truck, if you're lucky, or you got a bucket in which you can pull your keys out, and then you can figure out where you can find your truck. And then you get a checklist. This is all before you start, mind you. You get a checklist sheet that you have to go out there and inspect the truck and give the okay, make sure it has a full tank of gas. Oh, and you have to make sure it has a gas card. Because you do have to refill the vehicle before you bring it back before the end of your shift. And I will tell you from experience, most of them don't have it. And the gas card itself, which I'll get into because I'm trying to shorten this out because I don't want to make it a long story. So once you get your truck, once you have your stand-up meeting, no one ever tells you that, you also have to go load your own packages. Which, if you've seen the Amazon facility, it is the size of 4 football fields. So you have to go get your truck, line up, get directed by the yard person as far as where to park, which, you could be all the way in the front, you could be in the middle, or you could be in the back. If you are all the way in front and the packages are all the way in the back, yes, you are literally walking 80 to 90 yards just to get to the back end of the warehouse, just to go into the warehouse, to go find your signed packages, and then roll said packages out from the back of the warehouse to your vehicle, whether you're in the front, the middle, or the back. And if you're in the front, like I said, you're more screwed in the front because, I forgot to mention, after your stand-up meeting, you only get 15 minutes. 15 minutes, mind you. They have their algorithm such to a science that they sat there and said the Amazon delivery driver should be able to load, sort their packages in their vehicle in under 15 minutes. Now you have to think, it only works out if the vehicle's inside the warehouse. Now I'm only speaking from Tennessee. I can't speak for every other Amazon delivery place, but in Tennessee, let me tell you something. The facility there, you can't drive a truck through. They have an actual yard that trucks park in, and then you have to go walk into the building and go get them. I'm sure in different areas, you can probably pull the truck in the facility and be a lot easier, which in theory it probably would be, but unfortunately it's not in Nashville. So again, you'd think by the time you get to Amazon, you're already on a pressured schedule. And don't be late. Not only don't be late, but don't be late about getting your packages in, because number one, you won't get help. They say that they'll help. The managers, the DSPs say they will help you. No, they will not. They are too busy making sure to pressure you to get your job done because they're facing an algorithm, because they get bonuses from the shed. So you as a driver, you don't know what amount of packages you're going to be getting on a daily basis. I can tell you this from working from there for 3 months. My routes usually contain anywhere from 180 packages to almost as much as 325 packages. Now, that's a lot of packages, but you could have had anywhere from 85 stops a day to 170 stops a day. I even had a route that had almost close to 240 stops. Now, keep in mind, Amazon's drive time which they don't mention as well, which I find funny in the article. Amazon doesn't mention that every driver has a drive time, which is basically you get to drive for 8 hours. After 8 hours, you have to come back. That's the OSHA law as far as non-CDL drivers. You can only drive for 8 hours a day. Then after that, that's it, no matter what. So Amazon uses that term very loosely, and I say very loosely just because experience. So I'll give you a prime example. My shift was supposed to be from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So 8 to 5. Now that's loosely. Now, I say that's loose because, again, you got to think, if you have so many packages and you have over 100 stops, realistically, unless you skip breaks, skip lunch, drive more than the speed limit, and you're doing all the things you're not supposed to be doing, because that's another thing in training too. Because the training part is funny, but if you're basically breaking every rule, then yes, in theory, you could deliver all those packages within an 8-hour period and still get your truck back, get it fueled up, and that's the end of your shift. However, that's not the case. It really isn't. I mean, for a while, I was barely making it. And they were right about the bathroom breaks. They don't factor in time. They don't factor in the time for you as a driver on the road to find a bathroom. It's not inputted, because you're going to be in some strange areas. I was in some no man's lands where a bathroom was few, far, and in between. And this is during the summer, so you know you're consuming water at the time. So they don't take that in consideration. Oh, in your lunch? And that's the thing about it, that this handheld device they call a Rabbit, mind you. This handheld device that they have is a piece of shit, number one, because it does GPS. Your route is in this. They were right when they sat there and said, Amazon pretty much tells you where to go. You can go left, you can go right. Yes, they have a Rabbit, which has a GPS, which is shit. But the GPS only works for all the packages that are assigned to your route by your manager. You cannot manually input a GPS address and get directions to it from the Rabbit. It is already pre-programmed according to the route. I thought to myself that was the most asinine thing, to be given a handheld device that can make calls and has already pre-programmed GPS that does not work unless you need it manually. Like, a lot of us were using our own phones for GPS because the addresses that we had for these customers didn't even pull up on this freaking handheld device they gave us. And you gotta think, that's what every Amazon driver has to go through. So the urinating in bottles while on the road, yeah, that's true. Skipping lunch and then getting told, and then that's the killer part. Then getting told that you're not taking your lunches. Well, then you got to make a choice. Either I gotta take my hour and eat and get some rest in, or I have to skip that and keep going. That's the only way this works. At the same freaking time, they'll turn around and say, and I've heard this in the meeting, hey, we got to start taking our breaks, we got to start taking our lunches. And then I'm just sitting looking at them like, well, there's going to be some packages that ain't going to make it. And let me not even talk about if you come back with packages. And let me say this first. They said that the bullshit about the resources is basically called rescue. And that's only if the monitoring center, which is not even in the state, it's in Seattle. The monitoring center, which monitors your tracking position, tells you and looks at how many packages you deliver. And if the managers aren't paying attention, you won't get help unless you call for it. And if you call for it, there is not a guarantee that there is a driver near you, because that's the rescue. The rescue is a driver who's at the end of their route or has completed their route. They'll contact them and ask, would you mind go helping this said person because they're behind. Now, in theory, that works, but unfortunately, if every driver is backed up, then there is no rescue. And let's be honest, the managers are not going to come out from their nice little comfy desk inside the warehouse to come and help you, who still might have 60 packages in, and it's time for you to come in. And also, the training class they said about driving is bullshit as well, because it is literally trainers going over videos that tell you the same shit that you learned when you were going for your driver's when you were going for your first driver's test. it doesn't go over advanced CDL training, which it should have done. And in theory, I mean, nothing wrong with the trainers. You guys can only do what you can from the playbook. But the training itself didn't really help any. It didn't help any. Don't go into people's yards. Well, if it's on a one-lane road, you have no choice. Well, try not to back out as much. Well, again, if that's the only option, that's your only option. And also, before I get to the final part of this, the monitoring system they use for their sprint trucks is called Monitor. Let me tell you something, that is Big Brother in a car, because they ding you for everything. Like, if you go over 60 miles an hour, that's a point. If you back up, that's a point. And the cold game of it all, of this, is just that the system is on the handheld. The handheld sits in a holder. So if you are literally and figuratively getting a call, which they can call you on that same handheld, that's your GPS. If the monitoring system is on and you get a call, you immediately get dinged whether or not you answer it. So again, everything is against you. So, of course, Amazon tried to sit there and say, well, mistakes happen, things of that nature. And I always say that's bullshit, because I've seen it. I've had managers literally come up to me when I was given way too many packages. Sometimes I wasn't given a route. Sometimes I didn't always have a truck. So I was basically going around doing a job for the managers. So when I came back with packages, I used to be so worried. I thought that was the reflection on me. And then the more I see other people struggling when they come back, it makes perfect sense. But you know what Amazon will sit there and say? Well, we need to find solutions to deliver all these packages. And I told my boss one day before I quit, I asked him, well, what's more important? What's more important, me driving 8 hours to remain OSHA compliant, or me to get out these 200 plus packages and then come back at midnight? Because some drivers have to make that decision. Some drivers have to make that decision when they get their end of shift call and they still have packages out. Do they still continually deliver to ensure all those packages are gone? Or do they take common sense and say, you know what, I did my best shot, come on back? And trust me, if you do come on back with packages, those Amazon DSPs will quickly get rid of you and will try everything they can to get rid of you. So that again is where my personal opinion is on it, and that's the reason why I'm sitting there saying that entire story, which I feel sorry for the family, but Amazon trying to cover their ass is bullshit. So argue if you want me to, Amazon, because I really don't care, because I know the truth about this, and chances are there's going to be somebody from the national office that's seen this video, which I thank you for it. But moving right along, guys, some stories I do want to get into, because I found two stories that are just interesting to me. Because I did talk about this in the last podcast, where when it comes down to health systems, as far as using AIs and algorithms to formulate who may need the help the most, and I sat there and said that there was a particular EHR software out there that was giving preferential treatment to Caucasians over minorities, and I just thought that was crazy that system is still being used. Well, shouldn't be surprised about this either, because like I said, with technology, it seems to go apparently. Like, for example, there's a recent analysis of a system that was actually studied by the University of California at Berkeley, where for those that were applying for a home loan, that it looked at discrimination there. That if you were signing up for a mortgage online, it sat there and found, this university study sat there and said that when you sign up online, the Latinos and African Americans pay almost 1/10 more of a percentage point for mortgages, which they did a study between 2008, 2015, more than Caucasians. And we always knew there was a history of bias there, but again, this is the software. They looked at Rocket Mortgage, they looked at Prudential, they looked at all the areas that have online mortgages that you can sign up for, especially with Quicken who owns Rocket Mortgage. So they always try to sit there and say, well, race and ethnicity is not a factor used in those calculations. Bullshit! How else do you explain it? I mean, how else do you explain the simple fact of the matter that if you're a minority and you're trying to and you're trying to, own the dream of owning your own home, how else can you sit there and not think that it might be discriminated against me just because of my ethnicity? In the same sense where student loans. Student loans, again, that was my next story, where it seems that if you're a minority, the student loan debt weighs more on you than a Caucasian person. And again, this goes back to the system. And how else can you sit there? And I'm trying to tell people this. It's like there is racial bias. Racial bias does come from somebody's programming into an AI. At the same sense, we shouldn't be surprised that, for the simple fact of the matter, is that we have these big disparities between minorities and the majority. But to say that it's not ethically biased would honestly be bullshit. It really would, especially in the same sense of, how else do you explain that if I'm a homeowner and I'm paying with a larger APR on a house, where a person who is white may actually pay less than me, and we could be same income, same credit score, all the above? What is left? Just saying. But again, that's one of those things I want to look further on, because as it goes from health, from finance to student loans, there is just something up about the algorithms that are used to produce these results, and I think that needs to be looked into heavily. But before I do get into our good news segment, I did want to post this story. Like I said, I would love finding. I'm more of a historian person. I do love hearing about the untold stories, especially from people who are involved in certain areas of our history. Which in this case, I did not know about this unit during World War II, and I thought to myself it would be cool to share, just because I hope that these women get recognition.
Tonight, there's an effort to give
some of World War II's unsung heroes the recognition they so richly deserve. The 688 Battalion was nearly 900 strong and the only all-black unit in the Women's Army Corps deployed to Europe. Jim Axelrod with their amazing story in tonight's Profiles in Service.
At 96, one of the best parts of Lena King's day is going through her mail.
We take it for granted today because we have so many means of communication.
Not Lena, not since her time serving in World War II.
I wanted to do something.
Many of the 7 million Americans in Europe during the war were on the move. Tracking them down for mail call was overwhelming.
Not getting any mail, your morale is really going to be low.
In February 1945, Lena King and 854 other members of the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion shipped out to Birmingham, England, where mail had piled up.
How bad was the backlog?
The mail was stacked almost to the top of the hangar. 2, maybe 3 years backlog of mail.
They worked 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, while bombs dropped all around them, processing 17 million pieces of mail.
They had asked if we could get it done in about 6 months. We were able to get it done in 3 months.
Then it was off to France, unclogging another mess. But rather than gratitude, the women of the all-black 6888 confronted something else.
And I met one white American soldier. The first thing that came out of his mouth, he said, "What are you doing here, nigger?"
And all you were doing was trying to get letters to the front.
We're trying to get letters to people like him.
Because they didn't get any parades then,
I like to call them pioneer patriots.
Retired Army Colonel Edna Cummings would like to see them recognized with a Congressional Gold Medal now.
During a time where they were denied basic liberties as Americans, they still wanted to serve the United States.
Nearly 3/4 of a century later, this veteran recalls her service with pride.
Well, that made me feel good, that I had done my part.
Her part, enduring racism while she kept morale blooming at a time we needed it most. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Las Vegas.
And that right there, I did not know. I'm going to be honest. I usually pride myself on knowing a lot when it comes to history. And that I did not know at all. And that itself should honestly be recognized. The 68th, 88th Central Post Directory Battalion, which I thought was really cool, did endure a lot. And at the same time, they should be recognized. I mean, hell, Trump can pardon 3 people who were literally killing folks over in Afghanistan and Iraq for no issue. You think this would be a slam dunk, considering that these women, these Army veterans, have literally gone unsung. And I just think that's a overall lack of a black eye of history. Just because that right there deserves recognition. That's just all I'm saying. But that's pretty much it for that. So we're just going to go on to get to our good news segment. And like we usually do on How the Frack We Got Here. I know there's a lot that we cover. Sometimes doom and gloom. Sometimes it's not always rosy and things of that nature. But it's the weekend. We want to send you guys on a good note and positive vibes and all that good jazz. So how do we do that? We do that by invoking your emotions. Pittsburgh celebrates World Kindness Day by honoring Mr. Rogers. And how do they do that? By having the kids and the hospital staff at the hospital dressed up like Mr. Rogers. And I'll be honest, it's cute. I can't knock it. For any of those that don't know Mr. Rogers, I feel like you are missing a lot in your childhood. Considering that Mr. Rogers in my childhood was a big part of it. And I think to myself that Mr. Rogers literally did do some things in PBS or on his PBS show, I should say, that actually a lot of other individuals weren't doing. He was trying to bridge the gap between racism. He was trying to explain differences in people. He was trying to explain basically collaboration among just everybody and the fact of the pure imagination. God dang it, Mr. Rogers was a national treasure, god dang it. But I do love the fact that, they decided to bring his wife into it, and she, of course, approved, because let's be honest, all Mr. Rogers was trying to be was just your friendly neighborhood person. And I still say that even though this was fake, even though this was found to be untrue, if Mr. Rogers was truly a Marine sniper with that many kills, respect, although that story is false. But again, I just thought that was a pretty good story, just because it's just a simple fact of the matter, just an act of kindness, which Mr. Rogers always was about. Speaking of people who are kind and lucky, the other story I actually have here is that a 7-year-old Army vet wins the lottery. And I loved, the reason why, aside from this, I love when people win the lottery. I would love to win the lottery, but I love the simple fact of the matter is just that this individual, his response was amazing to me. He goes, of course, he had the Cash 5 at this one in North Carolina. Cash 5, I think, was worth about a little over almost $277,000, which after state and taxes, because for some odd reason Uncle Sam still has to get his cut off a lottery, figure that one out. So he got his winnings down. After his winnings, he won like a little bit close to $196,000, and he said that's still enough because he wants to pay off his car and his house. And then I love the simple fact this answer where he sat there and says, I'm also going to get a bigger TV so I can watch my favorite wrestling matches. You know what? At that point, I ain't mad at him. I'm not mad at him because it's simple things. Like we always say when it comes to lottery. We always say the same thing whenever it comes to lotteries. We were always going to sit there and be like, you know what? If I get this, I get that. But the man just wants a big TV. He wants to pay off his car, pay off his house, and a bigger TV. I can't knock him for that. I really can't. But again, kudos to the Army vet and thank him for his service. But at the same time, hey man, I'm not going to knock you for what you want to do with that money. I still find it amazing that Uncle Sam still gets his cut off a winning lottery ticket that, again, let me stop, because it still doesn't make any sense to me how Uncle Sam can still claim taxes on lottery. But anyway, the next story I have here is actually out of Tennessee, which I think was really cool, that a single mom was actually getting sworn in to be a lawyer, and her son was present only because the judge insisted on it. And I thought this video was pretty cool.
And of the state of Tennessee. And of the state of Tennessee. In the practice of my profession. In the practice of my profession. I will conduct myself with honesty. I will conduct myself with honesty. Fairness.
I admit the video cut short, but I love the fact that the judge was holding her 1-year-old son because he sat there and said that he needs to be a part of this, he needs to witness this, and I thought that was cool. I mean, there are some times where I keep on saying to myself, if I come into a lot of money, I would probably go back and be a lawyer. That would be me. I mean, I've been told I should be a lawyer, but just because I like to argue a lot. I say debate, but people like argue. But I love that simple fact of the matter. And I like the fact of seeing positive influences as far as that child seeing his mom being sworn in, because you don't believe that stuff. That does have an effect on a child. It really does. But I do love the fact that that was there. And at the same time, it's a positive impression. But speaking of positive impressions, the last feel good news story I have, honestly, this guy needs to wear a cape, because this is some superhero shit to me. But anyway, let me play this video of this one paramedic who honestly has got something down.
In our series, A More Perfect Union, we aim to show you that what unites us as Americans is far greater than what divides us. For many people, especially children, a ride in the back of an ambulance can be a very scary thing. It's scary if you're an adult, too. Jamie Yukas introduces us to a Minnesota paramedic who found the magic solution.
When an emergency call comes in, paramedic Ivan Mazurkowitz rolls out, ready to make life-saving decisions. He's passionate about his profession, but still finds time for a little sleight of hand. Ivan's tricks are a regular part of the job on calls where kids are involved in order to help them stay calm.
What does magic do for a child?
It breaks the ice, it takes down their wall. Their association of an ambulance is blood and needles. It can literally turn a kid's worst day into one of the best days.
In the last 5 years, he's responded to more than 4,000 emergencies. Still, Ivan remembers the worst call of his career.
He was screaming for his dad over and over again, and this kid was just absolute fear. I watched a 5-year-old boy go from screaming for his father to lifeless. For the first time in my career, I actually felt powerless.
That tragedy drove him to search for a way to better connect with kids.
My name's Ivan, okay?
That's when he realized his boyhood love for magic just might hold the key. So he stopped at the Eagle Magic Store, the oldest shop in the country, and signed up for lessons.
Is there anything we shouldn't be looking at?
Well, I mean, if I gave away all the secrets, I'd be letting money just burn away, okay? I can't be doing that.
Now he works magic in the back of his ambulance.
I was saying that I had one and you had one, but in reality, I had how many?
0.
And you had how many?
2. 3.
Wait, what? So I learned a couple coin tricks, and I was terrible with it. But I didn't have to be good at it. I just had to be good enough for that kid, for one kid.
Of course, some calls are too critical for card tricks. But after he delivers a patient safely to the ER, he'll still take the time to distract a child from the scary task at hand.
One time I was doing magic tricks in the ER, and I was doing it while they were starting an IV on the kid, and the kid definitely still felt the IV, but he was still interested in what I was doing more. You hanging out with mom? Trying to get mom feeling better?
Does it make your job any easier?
Of course. Anytime we can distract children when they're hurt or ill, it just makes them so much easier to treat, and the parents feel so much more reassured.
Lift up your arms. Oh, right there.
And until his next call, the amateur magician will continue to make the fear disappear.
What really matters maybe isn't the medicine, it's how you treat people, and he just reminded me of that.
Jeremy, did you see how they did that?
Even the staff at Mercy Hospital can't unlock the secret.
It's gone. Is it over here? No, it's actually right here. All I want to do is be good at my job. And if it means me finding another way to be a better paramedic, which is doing magic tricks for kids, by all means, I'm going to do that.
Surprising kids to soothe their souls. For CBS This Morning, Jamie Yukas, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And so, like I said, I'm a grown-ass man. You can still show me a magic trick. I'm still going to sit there and watch it, even though I've seen it a million times. A million times I've seen the same magic trick. And he's right. Magic is the art of distraction with flair. And let's be honest, if it's a magic trick, you're watching, because you say more trying to figure out how he pulled it off, how he did it, things of that nature. And like I said, grown ass man, but I'll still turn into an 8-year-old kid if you show me a coin trick or a card trick or anything dealing with illusion. And I love the fact that he's using that in that profession to actually soothe children and some adults actually. So in my mind, not all heroes wear capes, but love the fact of seeing stuff like that he tries to take something that usually is a grave or dire situation and he tries to bring some light to it. So again, I'm not complaining. But that's going to be it for our show, guys. Thank you, everybody who was watching, whether you're watching live or on the playback. Really appreciate it. If you like what I did, just let me know. If you don't like what I did, still let me know. I still want to hear guys' opinions personally, because I'm just trying to make this platform of news and things of that nature be better than what it is, and I can't do that without you. So for all those that do watch, thank you so much. And at the same time, if you do have certain stories, things for me to look into that you want to be seen on How the Frack We Got Here, please let me know, and I can go from there as far as making sure that we're giving the correct information, because we just don't want to give information for just be giving it. We want to make sure that we're accurate, non-biased, and we're giving you all the facts to allow you to make up your own mind. So, with all that being said, some shameless plug before I get out of here. I am not the only cat that actually has a podcast. I'll start with my buddy Vaughn, 8.Wespoon, on Facebook, BigBZ8 on YouTube. Has several podcasts of his own. He actually has the VST, which is a podcast of various news. That news could be music, that news could be video games, it could be new trailers for movies. Interactive show just like mine. He also has Rhythm This Week, Reminisce Over the Rhythm, in which he goes over albums, past and present, to a 4-tier system. Honestly, sometimes I do kind of down a lot of the music because I'm very picky. But again, if you want to know what that 4-tier system is, you have to watch Rhythmus to find out. And he also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of ratchetness we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some videos make you think, some videos make you cry. Some videos, like my personal favorite, Burger King Drive You on Fire, which sounds like a South Park episode, it's still on WorldStarHipHop.com. But again, one of my favorites. Again, it's all entertainment, it's all fun, so I recommend looking into those. If you just look up 8.Wespoon on Facebook, you'll be able to go to his calendar to see when his podcast will be live on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully later today, if he decides to do a podcast, my other buddy Thomas Reed, aka Mountain Puncher, Thomas Reed on Facebook, the number 2, the letter T, the letter B, the letter D, 2BD on YouTube, has a podcast zone called To Be Determined. What is To Be Determined? If you've never seen Thomas before, he is a dude that stays in the gym. He's actually in the gym right now. But he stays in the gym all 7 days a week because he loves fitness. He loves to talk about fitness, what works for him, what workouts are better, nutrition, things of that nature, his own personal testimony, in hopes of inspiring others to find their results if they're determined enough to go that route. So To Be Determined will be a little bit later today, 3 p.m. on Facebook Live. And of course, his YouTube page, the number 2, the letter T, the letter B, the letter D, 2BD, as in To Be Determined, you can find on YouTube and subscribe from there. My other brother, Trace Brown, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, Trace Brown on Facebook, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, has a couple podcasts of his own. He actually has the Bump Down, which is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over what's hot on the charts and what's coming up on the underground, artists that he's working with. And also, if you're an artist that wants your music to be played on the Bump Down or to be played on Vaughn's Rhythm This, please reach out to Vaughn or Trace on Facebook, and they'll give you the information on how to submit your music. Please bring that fire, because we want to be encouraging, but we're going to be honest. And if your music is shit, we're going to tell you it's shit. So you know if it's shit before it's shit to us, that's shit. Then please keep your shit to yourself. We appreciate that. Aside from everybody else, feel free. So aside from Trace's Bump Down, which actually leads to the Smoke of Truth, the Smoke of Truth is a podcast that is not for the faint of heart, where few dare to tread, because Trace is a very unorthodox but a very intelligent brother, but we'll talk about the honesty, the truth behind the truth. And if you're willing to have that conversation, then god dang it, the Smoke of Truth podcast is for you, because Trace usually wants all the smoke. So if you look up Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, and then also DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, you'll be able to see when his podcast will go live as well. My other buddy who has a gaming channel, Wingnut Gaming, also is live on Facebook. What is Wingnut Gaming? He's the guy who loves first-person shooters. He loves Call of Duty Modern Warfare. He loves Battlefield 5. He loves Apex Legends. He loves Fortnite. His choice, not mine. He loves World of Warcraft. He's basically a social guy that likes to play with people and have fun online. I play with him multiple times on Battlefield 5 and Apex Legends sometimes, and also on Modern Warfare. But again, very social guy, just loves to have fun and make new friends. So if you ever get a chance on Facebook, look up Wingnut Gaming when he goes live, and you will not be disappointed. Also, at my own shows, of course, How the Frack We Got Here is every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, in which we go over the weeks and events that happened beforehand and try to make sense out of it all. My other podcast, also later today, will be the Off Limits podcast. What is Off Limits? Off Limits is the podcast that goes there. By there, I mean we talk about the subjects that few dare to talk about, and at the same time, we try to actually have a modern conversation in which people are not yelling over each other, people are not just trying to force his opinions down their throats. We are simply having that honest and open discussion, because a long time ago, for some odd reason, someone told us that we can't talk about sex, politics, religion with other people because it makes them uncomfortable. I believe a lack of those uncomfortable conversations has led us to the point to where our civil conversations today are really bullshit. What I actually aim to do through Off Limits is simply introduce that same type of conversation they tell us to avoid, but to do so in a meaningful civil conversation to lead the progressive movement. That's where I come from on that. So, Off Limits podcast will be later today from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And also on Sunday will be my other podcast of Get Bit. That is my video games, culture, and sci-fi podcast, in which we talk about video games. We talk about certain television shows. We talk about Marvel movies. We talk about DC movies. We talk about all the in-between when it comes to the world of geeks and nerds. So Get Bit will definitely be Sunday night at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And of course, all of our shows can be found on YouTube. So if you look up BigBZ.podcast, DJ King Eddie Wayne, the number 2, the letter T, the letter B, TBD for to be determined, How the Frack We Got Here, and of course Off Limits podcast. All of our shows do have YouTube channels, so you'll be able to like, share, and subscribe, and be able to see every podcast we've done from there. Aside from that, guys, the last thing I'll sit there and say is definitely thank you who all watch this. Thank you for letting me know that you watch it, and thank for letting me know as far as, certain aspects you may like and may not like. I take open criticism, honestly, because I'm trying to make the show better, is what I'm trying to do. So, if you have an opinion, or, again, whether you like it or hate it, let me know. And if you're watching this, I thank you, because, that helps me to understand that as far as what I'm doing is definitely getting out there, because, like I said, all we're trying to do at this point is basically put people in position with the table of bosses, because we're trying to put them in position. We're trying to turn this umbrella into a circus tent. And what I mean by that is the more people we get on this umbrella, the more we expand. And that's what we're all trying to do here, is basically just to a movement. Kind of like what Byron Allen's doing with Comcast. But aside from that, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful Saturday. Hope to see you a little bit later for the Off Limits podcast. Aside from that, hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully it's not too cold where you are. Personally, I love it. But aside from that, have a great day, guys.